Is it just me, or did the NFL feel different in the early 2020s? You had the old guard still hanging around winning games and refusing to let go, while the next generation was rising fast, hungry, and ready to take over, with Patrick Mahomes already looking like the future of everything. And right in the middle of all that transition, something happened that nobody fully saw coming.
Breaking news today, legendary New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady leaving the team with which he won 6 Super Bowls.
After 20 unimaginable seasons with the Patriots, Tom Brady is saying goodbye and moving on.
He is ending his 20-year run with the only team he has ever known.
Patriots fans are slowly digesting the news that Tom Brady will no longer be their quarterback.
It was inevitable. All good things must come to an end, right?
I have somebody telling me this morning. In fact, this is very interesting. This is not a football source. It is somebody in Tom's stratosphere that knows Tom. And he says Tampa.
Tom Brady left New England. Let that sink in for a second. 20 years, 6 Super Bowls, 1 dynasty, 1 city, and just like that, he was gone, headed to Tampa Bay, of all places, a franchise that hadn't been relevant in almost 2 decades. I think we took that era for granted, because looking back at it now, Tampa Bay Tom Brady might be the most stunning chapter of his career. This was a different version of Brady, older, with no safety net, no Belichick, no system behind him, out of his comfort zone for the first time in his entire professional life. Before the retirement drama, before everything got complicated, he was just Tampa Bay TB12. And somehow he went down there and did it all over again. To understand what made the Tampa era so special, you have to go back to what he was leaving behind. 6 Super Bowl titles between 2001 and 2019, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 9. The Patriots didn't just win championships, they manufactured them year after year. Roster after roster, different players came and went. The only constant was the quarterback and the coach, and together they made the whole thing feel inevitable. But by the end of 2019, something had shifted. Brady was 42, the offense had been stripped down, they lost to the Titans in the wild card round, and for the first time in a long time, the dynasty had a visible crack in it. The question wasn't whether Brady was done. He'd been answering that question for 6 straight years. The question was something different this time. The question was whether the relationship was done. And in March 2020, the football world got its answer. Tom Brady announced he was leaving the New England Patriots. The reaction was somewhere between disbelief and chaos. Sports radio erupted. Every major outlet ran the story. At the top of the hour, beat reporters who had covered the Patriots for 15 years were typing with shaking hands. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. Brady in anything other than a Patriots jersey was a concept the football world hadn't been asked to process, and now it was processing it in real time with very little warning. And then the next part landed. Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Jeff, this is breaking and coming in as we speak, but we are being told that Tom Brady, barring anything unforeseen, is expected to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Now, there is no signing plan right now, no press conference plan. A lot of people have been wondering if this would come up on the first day of the league year. What we do know is that Tom Brady is expected to be in Tampa with the Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay, a franchise with 1 Super Bowl title in their entire existence, a roster that had finished 7 and 9 the year before, a team that had burned through quarterbacks for decades, searching for the answer to a question they couldn't solve. Brady was 42 years old, and he chose them. The takes were predictable. System quarterback narrative came roaring back. Without Belichick, he'll be exposed. Tampa has no offensive line. He's too old to rebuild. Chemistry with new receivers. This is going to be a disaster. Those were the takes. And honestly, in March of 2020, they weren't completely unreasonable. The Buccaneers weren't nothing when Brady arrived. Let me be clear about that. They had Mike Evans, one of the most physically dominant receivers in the league, a guy who had posted 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons, a certified number 1 with the size and the hands to win at every level. They had Chris Godwin coming off his best year. They had a legitimate tight end room with Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement to join Brady, because of course he was. Those two weren't done with each other. And on defense, Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Levante David, Devin White, one of the most talented defensive rosters in football, a unit that head coach Bruce Arians had been quietly building into something serious. The pieces were there. The question was the conductor. Could Brady, at 43 years old, walk into a brand new system, learn a completely new playbook, build chemistry with receivers he'd never thrown to before, and actually make this work at the level it needed to work? That's not a small ask, even for the greatest of all time. That's a significant football challenge. And the early evidence was not encouraging.
viral pneumonia has hit central China's Wuhan city. Authorities have reported 27 cases in total.
It's a new type of coronavirus.
A mystery virus they'd hoped to contain, but one we now know can jump from human to human.
The risk is low in the United States.
The 2020 NFL season was strange for everyone. COVID protocols, no fans early. An off-season unlike any other. Brady couldn't even hold organized practices with his new teammates. The normal process of building chemistry was completely disrupted. He was learning routes over Zoom, building connections through walkthroughs instead of full-speed reps. And when the season started, you could see it. The Tampa Bay offense in September was not clean. Brady was forcing throws into coverage. His timing with Godwin and Evans was slightly off. The precise footwork and release that had defined his entire career looked labored at moments.
Bruce, to see 2 interceptions from Tom Brady, I don't know how much you've been able to see those, but what happened on those 2 plays that led to the mistakes?
One was a miscommunication between he and Mike, and he thought Mike was going down the middle. It's a different coverage. Mike read it right, and he should have been across his face, but Tom just overthrew it. And the other one was it was a screen pass with an outlet called, and he threw the outlet, and it was a pick 6. Bad decision.
Hey, Tom, there's been a lot of talk this week about Bruce Arians and kind of being blunt in his criticism of you, and specifically in the 2 interceptions. How is that for you? I think there's a perception that you haven't taken a lot of criticism from your coaches before. I don't think this is something that surprised you this week, is it?
Oh, so what's the question?
325. 325!
I don't want to make mistakes out there. I want to be a great player for this team every week. And I got to be able to play with confidence. I got to be able to play with discipline. I got to play, with a great focus and determination.
Whether you were surprised at all to hear Bruce speaking publicly about the picks and being critical of you as he was?
He's a coach, so, I'm a player. Just trying to win a game.
He threw 4 interceptions in the first 2 weeks. The television Sharons wrote themselves, Brady done. 3-letter debate system QB exposed ran somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 times. And the voices who had been skeptical since March were sharpening their knives. In week 3, he threw 3 interceptions against a Denver defense that under normal circumstances would not have been giving him problems. The score was 28-10. At one point, the Tampa offense was a mess. Brady was visibly frustrated on the sideline, the kind of frustration that registers differently when it's on his face, because this was a man who had played in 9 Super Bowls, a man who had been ice cold in the coldest moments imaginable, and he was standing in a stadium in Denver down 18 in the 3rd quarter, looking like a quarterback still searching for his footing. Those first 4 weeks were genuinely uncomfortable to watch, not because Brady was washed, but because the whole situation felt foreign, and foreign on Tom Brady's face just didn't compute. The doubters were loud, and they had ammunition.
If that's criticism, people have really, really thin skin, because the truth never hurts. If it was different for the quarterback than where he had been in the past and his friends and the media and tough shit.
But here's the thing about Tom Brady that the doubters keep forgetting. Every single time in his career, when the narrative shifted against him, every single time the football world decided it was over, he came back. And something started changing in October. Small things first. The timing routes sharpened up, the checkdowns became faster, the pre-snap communication with Evans and Godwin started to sync like 2 instruments finding the same key after weeks of tuning. And then it wasn't small things anymore. Week 5 against Chicago, Brady threw for 381 yards and 4 touchdowns, efficient, controlled. Exactly the way he operated at his peak in New England, spreading the ball across 5 different receivers, managing the pocket with that specific stillness that reminds you why arm talent alone has never been the full story with him. The following week against Green Bay on the road, Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline, Brady went toe-to-toe with the NFC's best quarterback and won. 311 yards, 3 touchdowns. The offense was clicking, the chemistry was real. Evans and Godwin were playing with the kind of trust that only comes from hours of repetition finally paying off, and Gronkowski back on the field was like finding a cheat code, a safety valve Brady had been throwing to for a decade, who understood his tendencies the way no rookie tight end ever could. And that's when everything changed. Not just the record, the feeling. Because from that point forward, Tampa Bay wasn't a story about adjustment, it wasn't a story about chemistry or age or whether the system QB narrative was true. It became a story about a quarterback who had done this so many times in so many different ways that even his adaptation was dominant. By December, the Buccaneers were 11-5. Brady had thrown 40 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. The offense was operating at a level that made you forget this was only his first year in the system.
Gronkowski, he's He's got it for the touchdown. Brady's going for the big ball. He's open. Evans for the touchdown on 4th and 3.
And Tampa's defense was the best in the NFC.
Oh, pressure and a sack for Devin White. Just maneuvered around Josh Jacobs with no issue.
Good protection, now it breaks down. Jones has it run all night, and it's picked off. Intercepted, Sean Murphy bunting.
A storm was brewing in Tampa.
Second down, looking for Gronkowski. He hauled it in, and he's in for the touchdown. Brady looking deep again. Mike Evans, he gets the separation and the score. Brady off the fake, plenty of time to the end zone. Godwin touchdown.
Just stop it. Look at this catch.
And for the first time in 13 years, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are headed to the NFL playoffs.
They try but couldn't break us. Promise you won't forget me when the champagne turn to rain. We're about to be major.
2020 is now in the rearview mirror, and the 11-win Bucs with that hypnotic championship mindset of Tom Brady at age 43 put a cap on a great season for the Bucs with his performance today.
Over the course of 16 weeks, based on what you earn, you either make it or you don't.
The postseason started in Washington, and Brady treated it like a formality.
First playoff game for Tampa in 13 years. First playoff game for Washington in 5.
We punch first, always. We strike first. Fly around, make plays, and have some fun. Hang it on his neck. Let's get it. Family on 3, 1, 2, 3.
He wasn't spectacular that day. He was something better. He was clinical.
Right away with the catch. Throw in the middle, complete to Godwin.
Hey, the fan, D.
Heineke has it deflected, and it looks like it's intercepted.
That's how we start that.
And Brady caps the drive with a 36-yard score to put Tampa up 9-0.
2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Controlled tempo. Tampa's defense completely suffocating Alex Smith and Washington's offense. The final score was 31-23, but it wasn't as close as that sounds. After the game, Brady walked off the field with that expression, the one you recognize if you've watched him long enough. Not relieved, not excited, just on to the next one. Next one was the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. Drew Brees on the other side, a home crowd that had been waiting all season for this matchup.
The Bucs are peaking at the right time. There's no question. They look like they're firing on all cylinders. But let's keep in mind, and I know it's hard to imagine. People think, right, you imagine Tom Brady being beaten 3 times by a team in his own division who he knows he has to beat. Boy, that's hard to imagine. But in fact, what history bears out is if one team beats another twice in the regular season, they're going to do it again in the playoffs.
And this game had a different energy to it. Brees and Brady, 2 of the greatest quarterbacks in history, both in their 40s. Both refusing to accept that it was over, both standing in the Superdome in January playing for an NFC Championship berth. Brady went down early, the Saints came out sharp. Alvin Kamara was everywhere. New Orleans led in the second quarter, then Brady settled in. He hit Evans on a deep crossing route for the first big play, followed it up with a surgical 2-minute drive before halftime, and in the second half Tampa's defense took over completely. Brady finished with 199 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Buccaneers won 30-20. And somewhere in that game, the narrative officially flipped. This wasn't the old man hanging on anymore. This was a quarterback who knew exactly what he was doing, exactly what was being asked of him, and delivering it with the kind of precision you only develop after 20 years of doing this at the highest level. Next stop was Green Bay for the NFC Championship.
Outside of Brady, who obviously this is huge for his career, what needs to happen for the Bucs to upset the Packers?
I think a lot of things have to happen perfectly for them.
It was just a matter of going up there and not getting overhyped. Just everybody do their jobs, and we were plenty good enough to win.
We were going to Green Bay, and BA was like, listen, they're going to have some fans, and we got to prepare for this crowd noise. And I was like, we haven't had crowd noise all year. How loud could it be?
If you've ever wondered about how much noise a crowd of 8,500 people can make, the answer is a lot.
He put crowd noise in practice, and I'm so glad BA decided to do that. It forced all our communication. It forced all the things that we had probably taken for granted that, we could just handle communication this way.
Aaron Rodgers was playing the best football of his life in 2020, the unanimous MVP. 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, one of the greatest regular seasons a quarterback has ever had. And Brady came into Lambeau Field in January with absolutely no concern about what was waiting for him. Evans caught one in the first quarter, and it set the tone. Immediately, Brady attacks the Green Bay secondary the way he always attacks coverage, with patience, with geometry, finding the leverage point and exploiting it, not forcing anything but not giving anything away either. Rodgers answered. Of course he did. This was a real game, a real fight, 2 world-class quarterbacks in a January game with a Super Bowl trip on the line. But Tampa's defense was the difference. 4 turnovers forced on Rodgers and the Green Bay offense, and Brady picked his spots perfectly all afternoon.
Brady goes for the deep shot. He's got a touchdown! Scotty Miller! Oh my God!
Final score, Tampa Bay 31, Green Bay 26. Tom Brady was going to the Super Bowl in his first year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 43 years old. And you know what no one really talked about in the moment, because the Super Bowl was right there, but worth saying now.
Oh, yeah. Tom, 3 consecutive wins on the road. How were you guys tested today at Lambeau?
Well, it's a great football team. They've been playing well all season, and, to come beat them at home, there were 9,000 fans. It felt like a little more than 9,000. But just great to get another road win. And now we got a home game. Who would ever thought, a home Super Bowl for us, but we did it.
This was the first time Brady had reached the Super Bowl without Bill Belichick, without the Patriots system, without any of the infrastructure his critics said was responsible for everything. He had done it on his own in a new city, a new system, a new set of relationships built from nothing in one disrupted pandemic offseason.
It makes it even more important that it's in our hometown. For that to be the first time that that's ever happened, we have a little bit of magic behind us right now.
First time, first team to ever do it, so we're excited down here in Tampa. We're going to represent.
The most mentally tough team is going up against a team with probably one of the most mentally tough players of all time in Tom Brady.
I think football to me is much more than just a sport, because there's a physical element, there's the mental approach, how you're going to get the job done, and there's the emotional part.
And that's all you're hearing about is you can't bet against Tom Brady, but I'm going to.
February 7th, 2021, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa Bay, Florida. Tom Brady playing in his home stadium for Super Bowl 55. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the dominant offense in the league, the team everyone had picked to repeat. And the football world was genuinely split. Yes, Brady had been incredible. Yes, the run had been special, but Mahomes was 25 years old and playing at a level that made matchup decisions feel impossible, and the Chiefs' offense had been dismantling defenses all year. This was supposed to be the moment where youth beat legacy, where the future officially absorbed the past. It was not that moment. Tampa Bay's defense came out in a defensive scheme that Mahomes had no answer for. The coverage rotations were perfectly designed, the pass rush timing was exact, and within the first 2 drives you could feel it. This was not going to be a Mahomes day. He'd be pressured all night, sacked 3 times, driven from his spots, repeatedly forced into throws that weren't there, and the 4 interceptions he threw, 3 of them in the red zone, were the product of a defensive game plan that was simply airtight. Brady was calm. That's the thing I keep coming back to when I think about Super Bowl 55, not the touchdowns, not the stats, just how calm he was. 3 touchdowns in the first half, no turnovers, operating the offense like it was a Tuesday walkthrough, reading the Chiefs' defense before the snap, going through his progressions with that specific unhurried rhythm that drives defensive coordinators completely insane, because he was never late, never early, just exactly on time every time. Antonio Brown caught one in the end zone.
There's the fake, there's the pass, and there's the catch for the touchdown! Antonio Brown!
Evans caught one, Gronkowski caught 2.
It's Gronkowski running through that secondary. Gronkowski's feasting here tonight, 6 for 68 and 2 touchdowns.
Gronkowski catches it for the touchdown, and Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win Super Bowl 55. The final score was 31-9. 31-9. The Kansas City Chiefs scored 9 points in a Super Bowl.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a second Super Bowl title in franchise history.
And Tom Brady doesn't pass the torch quite yet to Mahomes, does he?
In a season we will never forget,
You are the Super Bowl champions. We will always remember. To the entire Glazier family, congratulations.
You know, my father had an expression. If you want to know the road ahead, ask the person who's been there. We found that person. 10 Super Bowl appearances, 7 victories. Tom Brady.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And Brady walked off that field in Tampa, his home field, with his 7th championship ring. 7th. More than any franchise in NFL history, just for him personally more rings than any team has ever won. He wasn't chasing greatness anymore, he was reminding you of it. At that point, it didn't even feel real. A 43-year-old quarterback in his first year with a new team who came into a situation with real questions around it, who struggled in September, who absorbed every take about age and systems in decline, and then stood in February holding the Lombardi Trophy in a stadium he drove to every Sunday. It was genuinely absurd. And somehow we just watched it happen and moved on. The trophy meant something beyond the box score, because the conversation that had attached itself to Brady's legacy for the better part of a decade was about Bill Belichick. How much of it was Brady? How much of it was the system? What would he look like without the greatest defensive coach in history designing a structure around him every year? Tampa Bay answered that question, plainly, definitively, without ambiguity. Brady, without Belichick, went to the Super Bowl in year 1 and won by 22 points. 4,633 yards on the regular season, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, led a franchise that had missed the playoffs for 12 consecutive years to a championship. Without Belichick, without the Patriots' infrastructure, without any of it. Just him, a new city, new teammates, and a team that believed in what he brought. The system quarterback narrative died on a field in Tampa in February 2021, and it died loud. You can't footnote it, you can't asterisk it. Here's what I think gets overlooked when we talk about Brady now. The Tampa Bay version of him was different. Not better or worse than the Patriots version, just different in a way that mattered. Because in New England, there was always a system to fall back on, always a Belichick adjustment coming in the second half, always a defensive structure that could hide offensive inconsistency, always the comfort of 20 years of familiarity. In Tampa, there was none of that. Brady had to lead differently, there had to build relationships from scratch, had to earn trust in a locker room that had never won anything, had to convince players who had never seen a Super Bowl that the process he'd built his whole career around actually worked. And he did that. With Evans and Godwin and a rebuilt tight end core, with a defense he had no hand in building, with a coaching staff he was just starting to understand. That's harder than doing it at home, that's harder than doing it inside the machine you've spent 2 decades inside. And watching it unfold in real time, the chemistry building, the defense tightening, the offense finding its rhythm through October and November all the way to a February night in Raymond James Stadium. I think we took that era for granted. Because it was Brady and we expected Brady to be great, because the championship happened and championships tend to close the conversation, because the next year he came back and went to the NFC Championship game again, and then the year after that he retired and unretired and the drama took over and the Tampa chapter got compressed into a sentence. 7 rings, including 1 in Tampa, but it was more than that. It was a 43-year-old quarterback doing something genuinely unprecedented, leaving the only professional home he'd ever known, walking into uncertainty with no guarantee of anything, and not just surviving it, owning it. Before the comeback out of retirement, before the drama of the back half of his Tampa tenure complicated everything, there was 2020, a year when Tom Brady left everything familiar and went somewhere new and earned something real. And maybe we didn't fully appreciate how crazy that was. 7 Super Bowls, more than any single franchise in the history of the sport. And the last one didn't come in a familiar stadium or in a familiar uniform or inside the machine that the world assumed was responsible for everything. It came in Tampa Bay, in a stadium he'd never played in professionally before that year, in a city that hadn't won a Super Bowl since 2002, with teammates he'd barely known 6 months earlier. Before the questions about whether he was truly done, before the retirement and the comeback and all of it, before everything got complicated. He went somewhere new in the final stretch of a career that had already earned everything it needed to earn, and did it all over again. And maybe we didn't realize how crazy that really was.